Also a member of the Alan Gray Fellows.
No.
You're not. When are you getting him to be a member?
It's a very long selection process. You have to be.
How does it work?
Basically, you're selected when you are either in matric or in your first year of university, and you have to go through a whole entrepreneurial development program. You have to complete a South African degree.
Okay.
In a
What
number
do you mean
of
a South
fields.
African degree?
A South African degree.
If you complete it at Oxford, it doesn't qualify.
Sometimes there have been cases where we've had fellows doing. We have a fellow at Harvard right now.
Okay.
We've got some fellows doing their postgrads in Oxford and other places.
Okay.
But you have to complete an undergraduate degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sumesh, talk a little bit about the discussions from yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, what impressed you most?
I think it's, Africa is a big opportunity. Everyone's talking about it, yeah. But I think what impressed me the most yesterday was the recognition to systematically develop leadership within Africa. It's all well and great to say, Africa's the next big opportunity and it's going to be the next big growth factor. But for organizations, whether a small organization or a large organization, to succeed in any environment, leadership is at the core of it. And the key message yesterday was there is a need, and people are recognizing the fact that you need to systematically develop sustainable leadership for the long term.
Is that the same thing for you, Susie? What impressed you in the conversations of yesterday?
Well, I think primarily for me, it's just the concept of tomorrow's Leaders Convention is the idea of bringing together like-minded young leaders and connecting them to, the older generation, so we can bridge that gap in terms of mindset and visions and see that whether we're aligned in terms of where we are directing our efforts. And just to have a group of dynamic young people in the same room sharing the same visions was, I think, for me, a very good thing.
Okay,
overall.
like-minded. What about the ones who've got a contrarian kind of view, who think of things in a different kind of way?
I think when it comes to leadership, the basics are the same. We might differ in terms of implementation and where we'd want to go with it, but the basics of leadership are always the same.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you're not looking for diversity, you're not going to get the kind of progress you want to make. And different people come from different thought patterns. They come from different schools of, thought, leadership, and you just got to embrace that. And once you embrace the diversity, and once you go past, petty issues and common issues that sort of impede progress, you're going to make you're going to make great strides.
Okay, what was the objective of yesterday? So a group of young people discussing to get to what?
The theme of yesterday was sustainable leadership. And I think one of the primary objectives was to try and understand what it is that Africa as a continent, and particularly Southern Africa, what would it require in the next 5 to 10 years or so in terms of the visionary leadership that's required within corporates, within politics or whatever, in a sense, so that we can drive the entire region to a better economic position. And
what were some of the ideas that were placed on the table? What should constitute this visionary leadership?
We spoke about social responsibility, which came up as a big factor. We need leadership that is far more attuned to social ills and has a greater sense of commitment to changing those things instead of it being just a policy issue on a political side.
What are we talking about? Crime, health, education?
We were talking particularly around small businesses and enterprises and the support that they need. We're talking about mentorship of young individuals. We're talking about how you absorb dynamic, very, very brilliant young people into corporations and how you can accelerate them through the ranks. So
the deliberations of yesterday, all of the diverse thoughts that were put on the table, what happens to them? What happens from here?
I think the idea is to get young business leaders from across the country to a convention like this and I think there are two objectives. One is ensure that you learn from what other people are doing and the leadership practices that they're implementing in their organizations. And the second is you build yourself a solid network of young leaders from across the country. Now, it's always a tricky question with a conference here. What happens next? I mean, what happens next really depends on how much you want it to happen or what you want it to happen.
How do you harness all of the intellectual conversations? I mean, next year, do you meet again and discuss the same things?
No.
How do you bridge the gap between this year and next year and be visible in evaluating this process?
I think, from my perspective, with an organization like the Association of Alan Gray Fellows, we bridge that gap because we have a full year program. So we find people that we feel can bring a lot of value into the fellowship, and some of those could be meetings that happen at conventions of this nature, and some of them could be direct contacts that we make. And then we continue the conversations throughout the year, and we set up various incubative kind of processes to ensure that some things get implemented.
Yeah. Susie, you voiced an opinion that in the near future you see an evolution in the way in which companies do business in South Africa.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think particularly right now we have a very limited scope in terms of, the product portfolio. What companies sell currently is focused very much on the technical side, and a lot of the business models, according to youngsters like myself, are outdated, and if you look at what's going on in Europe, there's been a lot of challenge that's been presented to South African firms with the entry of some European firms because they're struggling there and they're coming down here. So it needs to advance a lot more from just typically providing a product to serving an entire industry. So end-to-end solutions are becoming the norm, and that requires a different and far more elevated level of business thinking.
Ramesh, you were talking about a significant talent gap beyond 2020?
Yeah, look, I was referring yesterday when I spoke at the conference, I was referring to a particular study that we paid particular attention to. That's basically goes and explores the leadership talent that will be available in the world by 2020. And what it says, and quite logically, what it says is because of the populations, because of the workforce age across developing countries, there's not going to be a shortage of leadership talent in countries like South Africa, whereas developed countries are going to have a much larger gap that they need to bridge in terms of leadership. But that also brings a more important question, and that is, there might be, there might not be a gap in South Africa, but does that really tell you that there is going to be quality talent? Is there going to be quality leadership? And that's a big question we need to look at. And that can be addressed. That has to be addressed by education systems, both foundation and at a university level. It has to be addressed by leadership training, soft skills development, and those are the big things that we should be looking at.
All right, cool. Is there a website where whoever's listening to us now is thinking, I'd like to learn more about this and I'd like to get your presentations and that? Where can they get that information from?
Well, the Tomorrow's Leaders Convention is tomorrowsleaders.co.za.
Tomorrowsleaders.co.za. All presentations posted there?
They should be.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Susie Nkambule and Sumesh Rahavendra, Head of Marketing, DHL Africa. Okay.